Hello, my name's Shona Ulrichsen. I'm a board member at OSCR, and it's my pleasure to be chairing the event today. And so I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, which is I'm going to hand over to Maureen, who's going to tell you all about OSCR, and will include some key updates for charity trustees.
I had my driving glasses on so I could see you all, and can I just say you should be fine for filming. You're all looking pretty good from up here. You're looking a bit hazy now, but that's fine. I can see my notes, and that's the main thing. So let me tell you a little bit about OSCR, and just to take you through some information. I'm not going to tell you all about us, but just some little bits. So that's what we're going to be covering today in terms of the overall agenda. So, OSCR, most of you know a fair amount about us, I guess, and that's why you're here, or you're here because you know a little bit about us and you want to know a lot more. So let's just give you some generic information. We're 16 years old. We're a non-ministerial office. That's quite an important thing about who we are in terms of how we sit aside from government. So all the staff are civil servants, but we don't directly report to any minister. We report directly to Parliament, and it's quite an important distinction about us. It means that we have that at-distance relationship with them so that we can talk to them more actively right across government about policy and any concerns that we have and so on. So that gives us the space to do that. We have about 50 staff, and we're all based in Dundee. I only joined the organisation at the end of January. As Shona was saying, I'm there as the interim chief executive, and those of you who keep an eye on jobs will know that the permanent job is actually advertised at the moment. So if you know of anybody that's really itching to be in an incredible job, leading an incredible organisation and supporting the charity sector, then tell them to have a look. The staff there are a range of specialists and support staff, and I have to say that having been there now for 7 or 8 months, I'm absolutely bowled over by the commitment in the whole staff team. People stay in OSCR because they love OSCR. So it's a really nice place to be. I walk along back and forth in the office, and I hear people talking, possibly to some of you, and they know their stuff. They have a huge amount of knowledge and depth, and they really care. That their job and our whole job in the organisation is to support the sector. It's not to sit, and I think some people think, oh, if you're a regulator, your job is to try and trip people up and see if you can ask them smart aleck questions and then catch them out. Anything but, and I hear staff handling very complex areas indeed in a very good way. So I would say to you, if you haven't had much contact with us, if you ever feel the need, please do get in touch. We're a very friendly bunch, and hopefully you'll get a chance to talk to some people today. OSCR's vision: to build charities you can trust that provide public benefit. We're what we call an enabling regulator, and I think that says quite a lot. That's about us making sure that we're not just being very functional in our regulatory duties. We're there to support, to challenge, to engage, to develop. So really we spend a lot of our time trying to be as empowering as we can and enabling as we can to the charity sector. So that, I think, takes us into territory with quite a lot of other regulators, but not all. So some regulators that you'll engage with will be much more functional in terms of the practicalities that they will cover. We're there to lend a hand as well as to do the rest of the breadth of our work. We work without fear or favour, as I say, we have that independence that enables us to do that. And we support charities, staff and trustees on their continuous journey to improvement, and also hold them to account. So when we do that, again, we will do that very confidently and comfortably. So if you're ever concerned about your own charity or another charity that you come across, please give us a call. We're not going to just say, ha-ha, now that we've got something there, we're going to go and see what bad things we can do to people. Anything but. Our year in numbers is quite a useful thing to think about. The numbers actually stay relatively stable for the most part, but it's quite nice to have a look at some of these. Of course, the number that are joining us, 65% joining us who are SCIOs. If you know what SCIOs are, that's good. If you don't, then ask one of us at the break. And in fact, ask Martin at the break or Jude at the break. They'd love that. And when Neil comes back in, he would particularly love to talk to you about SCIOs. It's one of his favourite things. But when we were set up 16 years ago, nobody was thinking that this was going to be the scale that it is. So very many organisations now want to come and join us as SCIOs. One of the numbers that we're particularly proud of is the level of views of annual reports and accounts on the register. That'll be for a whole variety of reasons. It'll be funders, all sorts of different people who are just curious and interested about where their money's going. But all in all, we like the idea that since you have to send us lots of information and you have to send us your accounts and reports, I think it's quite reassuring that actually people are bothering to stop and read them. So it's not like it's coming to us and nobody's doing anything with them. We are, and then other people are looking. So who do we regulate? It's quite good to look at this in a whole different set of ways, and when we discuss this with our board and within the organisation, we talk about it in scale, looking at the amount of charities per head of population. We look at where they are geographically. We do all sorts of things, but looking at this financial one is a really interesting one. It's just one snapshot, but what it tells you is that the vast majority of charities relatively small. So if you look at that 10 million plus, there's only 1% in there. Anybody in here in that 1%? No. Actually, yay, we do have one. You are the 1%. Congratulations. In fact, that works out pretty nicely in the numbers, so thank you for being here. When you look at the rest of the numbers, what it basically tells you is the vast majority of people are sitting with relatively small amounts of money. That's not the only part that's important to us, because in terms of scale, you might have many organisations small in financial terms, but that doesn't mean that they're small in terms of the impact that they have, the reach they have, and so on. So that's not the only thing we take into account. There have been discussions every now and again of, do we not bother with organisations if they've just got a really small amount of money, and that's just not the case for us at the moment. So everyone, no matter what size, very important to us. Here's some of what we do. We register new charities. And again, what's interesting there is the number of charities that we have on our books tends to be relatively stable. So although we spend quite a lot of time registering new charities, we also spend quite a lot of time helping charities to wind down. So there seems to be a strange balance to in and out. Just this amazing percentage of people in Scotland who want to have charitable status. We help to shape policy. I think it's a really important part of what we do, that we gather and know a huge amount about the charity sector in Scotland. With 24,500, almost 25,000 charities on our books, the amount of engagement that we do, the amount of interaction we have, the amount of data, the amount of analysis we have, we sit with an enormous amount of intelligence, and we spend a lot of our time working with other parts of Scottish Government and with government colleagues to try and make sure that if they're developing policy, that we're in there as early as we possibly can be, to make sure that they know and understand what the charitable sector is doing within that sphere. So although everybody would normally think, well, you probably just deal with those who deal with charities, well, actually almost every part of government, whether it's Scottish Government or UK for that matter, charities have such a broad reach and impact everywhere. So whether it's health, environment, education, wherever, we try and make sure that the intelligence we have is being used to have that sphere of influence, and it's something that we're increasingly focusing on. Oh, disappeared that one. I was told to keep an eye on the down button, but I forgot about that there. Let's bring that back. Helping charities understand and comply with their duties. It's not easy being a trustee, and I imagine almost all of you don't need me to tell you that. People get involved in it because they think, this is a great organisation, I really believe in this, and then they get there and think, wow, for most of us it's complicated, and it's increasingly complex in terms of the things you have to do. It's one of our roles to work with many organisations, but we have a specific and discrete role in terms of making sure that we bring out guidance to support and to support trustees and to support those running charities to really understand their duties. We don't want to have people tripped up. And I think what's interesting is when people get things wrong, for the most part, most people don't set out to get something wrong. It's unintentional when things go wrong. So what we try and do is understand what are we hearing about in terms of concerns or complaints and so on, and that really that takes us into the space where we'll think, well, we better write some guidance about that, or we better get involved with 2 or 3 other organisations to go out and deliver some training or awareness raising on that, because if we're doing our job really well, we'll get less and less complaints and concerns because everybody will know what they're doing and do it the best they possibly can. We are absolutely here to take action when a charity breaks the rules. If you go onto our website reasonably regularly, you'll see updates on inquiries. We publish our reports when we undertake an inquiry, and we take it very seriously when we hear that an organisation or an individual is doing something inappropriate. Within our team, we have legal specialists. We also have our own solicitors that we'll go to for specific legal advice, and we'll take things through whatever due process we require to do. So I suppose what I'm saying to you is, although we do all of the positive and empowering area as well, please be very clear that when we do hear about something inappropriate, we do take action, because that's what helps people to feel confident in charities. If we get that right, the public feel more confident in charities, therefore we'll give more money, we'll give more of their time, and we'll be more engaged. So if people know that the regulator's doing that, then I think that increases public confidence. One of the areas that we've been really talking about a lot this year, and some of you may have seen quite a lot of media interest in our notifiable events, that's about charities telling us when things happen. It's really, really important that if something goes wrong in the charity that you're involved in, and you're thinking, this is something significant, please get in touch. It's not an admission of failure to get in touch with us if something's going wrong. If you've spotted something, you're trying to work through it, and you're really trying to mitigate what's going on there. You're thinking, okay, we found out that somebody wasn't doing the right thing, or we were doing the wrong thing in that way. Phone us and talk to us and tell us about that. It's a really interesting area for me, and very reassuring for me that more and more people do that. We've had 320 notifiable events in 3 years. I think that's a real success. But interestingly, when we were looking at that in the media were saying, oh, that's 320 people who are doing really bad things. How do you feel about that? Isn't that awful? And you think, wow, have you never made a mistake in your life? So people making mistakes is going to happen. It's very important to pick up the phone and let us know. We'll work that through and try to understand exactly what's going on. And then we'll handle that whichever way we need to handle that. There's lots of different things that people get in touch with us on, but financial loss is the most reported, with almost a quarter there, as you can see. We talk increasingly in the organisation about undertaking our work as targeted regulation. So I want to just really focus in a little bit on what that means. With almost 25,000 charities, what we're not trying to do is to go out and look at everybody's information in the same way all of the time. So there are particular things, particular areas, particular thematics that we look at and we drill into that bit deeper. We look very closely at anything that's giving us a concern that there might be deliberate mismanagement of charities, and anything that's coming in on that is taken up high on our risk register. We have a risk framework and an approach to risk where we'll really kind of code things. So sometimes if you're thinking, wow, I mentioned something to you and I haven't heard anything back, we will have had a look and done a risk assessment, and if we're thinking that that's actually a relatively low risk, then we may deprioritise it for a while we actually work through the rest of our priority. It's a triage system, and I think hopefully you would expect us to do that. We don't just think, well, we got that one in the 1st of August, so it doesn't matter how scary that one is that came in on the 10th, we'll get to that in due course. We try to constantly prioritise. Obviously, there also is criminal activity. Charity trustees' lack of knowledge, and we mentioned that earlier on. There is that duty on trustees to know what they need to know. It's not good enough to say, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that's really what I was coming in to do. So it is something we take very seriously if we're hearing that something's going wrong in a charity, and the trustees appear not to know what they're supposed to be doing and what their remit and duties are. Attempts to gain charitable status for private benefit. Again, that's something that as that comes through, as anybody's getting in touch to set up a new charity or to change the purposes of their charity, this is something that we're very alert to. And a lack of clarity of the charity brand. If it's really difficult to work out what on earth your charity is trying to do, and some people are very complex, so it's not about it keeping it as easy as possible. But if it's not clear what the charity is trying to do, then that would be something that we would be concerned about and look at further. And obviously charities that don't provide public benefit. And there are easy examples of that to think of when people talk about particularly old beautiful buildings being taken into an organisation, but nobody's ever going to get to use them, nobody's ever going to get to go in and see them, nobody is going to get to do anything with them apart from a few people. Then that's something that we would want to think, really? What's that about? So anything that's not about the automatic and sort of public benefit is something that we would explore. I've mentioned public quite a lot in this, and we are spending a lot more of our time this year, and we will be in the next couple of years, on really focusing in on public trust. It's a complicated one for us, and we have our discussions and debates and considerations all the time. Do people need to know who OSCR are out there? Do I need to get to the stage where I worked for HMI as an education inspector and for quite a few years? Do I need to get to the stage that HMI was a well-known brand because most people know about it because of schools? Do we need OSCR to be as well-known as that? Or what do we need to do to make sure that people know that there's a regulator there and it helps to build public trust? But here are some of the main areas that we need to think about with public trust and charities. So the vast majority of people are saying that trust is important when they're donating. They need to know that they can have absolute faith, obviously, that any money they're putting in is going to be spent where they think it's going to be. And high levels are saying charity regulation is important. Knowing how much goes to the cause increases trust, and that's that area that we're all increasingly used to, where it's very nice to be able to talk in percentage terms to people about, over 75% goes straight to X or 90% goes straight to X, and it helps people to think, oh, that's fine, they know what they're doing. And evidence of achievements. It's a funny thing for people in Scotland. This is one of these sweeping statements of we're very shy about what we do. We're all kind of prone to saying, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm okay. Most people here don't say, I'm fantastic at that, I'm great at that. And I think it's really, really important to be doing that with your charity. Make sure that people do know what you've done and what you've delivered, and within your own report. And there are great opportunities within your reports to really shout from the rooftops about what you do. So here's some things that we think we can do to improve trust. We get our guidance right. We engage as soon as possible with problems and issues, which is why we triage. Be strong when we have to. It's all very nice being an empowering regulator, but if people were starting to think, yeah, they're too soft, they don't ever actually really work hard on things when tough things happen, that wouldn't be helpful. let the public know we're here, and make the register as good a tool as possible for transparency. And that's something that we're working on and working with government colleagues to consider. Things charities can do to improve trust. We would say this, wouldn't we? But it is really helpful to get your reports and returns to us on time. If people can go to them and find them when they expect to find them, that gives them a confidence that you're being well run as an organisation. Make sure your register entry is up to date. These things can seem small and pedantic, but again, it's things that if they're not there, they can give people wobbles, give people concerns. So anything we can do on this is really helpful. Shout about how you make a difference. Maybe we're not as shy about organisations as we are about ourselves. I see some great information coming out about charities, so I think it's find the great work that you see and either replicate it or do even better than it. Invest in your governance. It's so important to invest in yourselves. I think what's interesting is, like many organisations, I think people find it difficult to think that they should prioritise themselves and spend money on looking after themselves, training themselves, thinking about that governance. It's really important to do regular health checks within your governance, and there'll be more of that later. And here's a small plug. Use your free registration logo. So, we have these registration logos that every charity can download. Bit of a straw poll. Do most people here? Does anybody know if do they use it? Do you use the download? Reasonable amount. Yeah. But some people know. No. So if we look at what the benefits are, so having something there that has your particular charity number on it that says, we regulate you. As soon as people see that, they should be thinking, whew, well, that's okay. Somebody is watching over them. That's pretty good. We'll trust them. We'll trust them with our money, our time, our resources, our children, our parents, and everybody else in between. So it really does help. What we've been doing over the last while is making sure that the offer on the registration logo is even better. I think, am I right in thinking 30,000, around about 30,000 downloads so far? So lots of people using it, which is great. But what we were hearing back from people is actually it was in a very specific format, and sometimes the format didn't fit with, if you had a particular flyer or a different kind of publication, it didn't fit to that. So we brought it out in a few different colours, a couple of different shapes, so that should really help to address that. So if you've had problems downloading it in the past and you want to try it out again, please do. We think it's a really good way to build public trust. Most of you will be aware that there was a charity law consultation in the earlier part of the year. That was happening, I think it closed in March, was it, Jude? Something around then? End of March, early April, something around then. It was all happening just as I came into the organisation, which was very handy if you needed to do homework for what was going on in the charity sector for a job. So that suited me quite nicely to be coming into that world at that point. The analysis has now been published. What I want to do is just highlight some of the main themes that was looked at. Really high levels of engagement in the consultation, with 308 organisations and individuals actually engaging within it. So lots of people taking it very seriously, and an overwhelming response in terms of people saying, yes, the powers that were talked about in it made a lot more sense. So overwhelmingly positive feedback from those that participated. And we're working very closely with Scottish Government colleagues to consider how to move forward on some of the areas that have come through on it. I think a lot of us had high hopes that there would be new legislation happening very quickly on the back of the consultation. That's not going to be the case because, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you all, we live in very complicated and busy legislative times at the moment. So we're certainly hoping that we're working towards later in the year, later in this session, beginning of the next, where the idea is that the Scottish Government really do have a strong commitment to the charity sector and want to get the legislation right. So we want to use everything we already know about the sector to help to improve that legislation. So what have we got that's new? We've got some new guidance on the OSCR website. We've got some on charity accounting, thinking of becoming a charity, and investment guidance. The other thing that we've been doing is we have a beta version of our trustee guidance out there just now. It can be quite complicated coming onto the OSCR website to try and find the guidance that you actually need. It's that question of, I don't know what I don't know, so how do I work out what I do actually need? So Ian and Jude and other colleagues within our engagement and communications area have been working on a tailored set of guidance so that you can basically go onto the website, pop in some details about yourself, and that will actually then bring out a tailored set of guidance for you or for your individual organisation. So again, if you haven't looked at that or done that sort of thing for a while, have a look at the beta. And it is a beta version just now because we know we're testing it and we want to get it right. So if you do it and try it out and you've got anything to say on it, please get back to us. Anything you can do to help us improve it would be really, really appreciated. What else is new? Our online application form. What we've done is actually move our application form online. Sounds like a nice, easy, straightforward thing. It took a lot of heartache for Martin and a number of his colleagues. So anytime I see it, I want to be close enough just to pat his arm to say it's okay now, it's out there. It's going really well. We're getting really strong feedback from it. People are actually really finding it much easier to use with the way that it's accessible. It asks the right questions to take you through. So again, if you talk to people who need to engage with us and apply, you don't have to say to them, gosh, it was really terrible when we had to do it, it was really traumatic. Or you could say that and then say, but it's different for you, so you're lucky because there's a much better process in place. So that's certainly one of our new areas. One area that's coming is our new digital strategy. It's something that we looked at and thought, we've always been updating and refreshing what we do digitally. Our website is constantly improving everything that we do to engage with charities on a digital framework is changing. But what we want to do is to actually get more of our services available online. I know not everybody likes to be online. Shona and I were just talking earlier on about we've got a board meeting on tomorrow, and we send out all of our board papers online, and then we say to some, but do you really still want them by paper? And people say, yeah, we really still want them by paper. So some people love online, some people don't, but we know that it's cheaper, it's accessible, and most people, if they don't have their own facility, can certainly access something in their own area. So we do want to make sure that the vast majority of things are available online. We've got an advanced suite of online guidance coming, and more efficient ways to try and connect and contact with others. We've been doing a lot on social channels as well. We've been doing a lot of engagement through Twitter, through Facebook, through lots of as many different social media channels as we can. We want to make sure that we are engaging, we're getting the word out there. It was interesting when I first came to the organisation that people said, "Oh, OSCR, in some ways, you try and keep yourselves a little bit below the radar." We were all smiling, saying, "Well, no, that's not what we're for. We know that people need to know who we are and what we do. So the more that we promote ourselves, it's not a selfish thing to promote ourselves. We think the more that people know about us, the more that they will trust us, the more they will trust you, and the more that they'll understand about the breadth of the charity sector." So that is another big area for us. And in fact, our new digital strategy is on said board papers and going to the board tomorrow for discussion and consideration. We've also got work underway to update our inquiry policy. Again, it's a really important thing that we do that. One of the most disappointing things for us is the level of complaints we get about people being really upset about getting in touch with us about something we can't do something about. Now, that sounds a bit convoluted, but what that means, we need to be clearer about what we are for and not for. We need to make sure that people know what we can do and what we can't do, what we can act on and can't. So what we're really trying to do with our updated inquiry policy is to make sure that people really do have a very good understanding of how we deal with concerns, and so that it's to be as transparent as we possibly can. This is the first update for 5 years. We think it's been working reasonably well, but we did start to see a slight increase in complaints coming through, and we know that actually, as I say, a lot of that is down to people thinking, but why haven't you come back to me about that? Well, because actually that's not our process. So we need to work out how to get those processes as clearly understood as we possibly can, and to give clarity for those who are raising concerns. There's nothing worse than putting your hand up and saying, I'm concerned about something or someone out there, and then thinking that we're not doing anything about it. That's the last thing in the world we want, so we need to make sure that people really do understand exactly what we do. Have we got a particular time frame on when we think we'll have our updated inquiry policy?
I think we're now looking at the end of the financial year.
Yeah. I didn't want to just say. I think it's because there's an awful lot of work to be done on that and to engage with colleagues on that. So it's something that we're undertaking, and we definitely will have it done within this business year. All of that can sound like we do an awful lot of this work in isolation, and we absolutely don't. We love working with our colleagues across the sector in partnership. We want to make sure that we're all doing the right things, and in fact I've been spending quite a lot of time with the Chief Exec of SAVO, the Chief Executive of ACOSVO, with Volunteer Scotland, to try and work out how we make sure that people know who to come to for particular things. There's nothing worse than trying to think, oh well, which one of these many organisations do I go to? So I think they're fairly discreet. We think that we've all got a fairly discreet, clear offer, but there is plenty of advice and support out there for you, no matter what your query and area is. As I say, do please pick up a phone to us if you've got anything you want to talk to us about. Keeping in touch, that's all of our different approaches of how you get in touch with us these days. And I'm going to stop, take a breath, and see if you've got any particular questions that I or my colleagues can help with.